Hey, what's going on, Who Dat Nation? It is yours truly, TJAY Jones. And yes, I am the host of the State of the Saints podcast. Thank you so much for checking out the State of the Saints podcast, where we talk New Orleans Saints. On this edition, we're going to be talking about some of the roster moves the New Orleans Saints have made. We're also going to be talking about Derek Carr and what his status most likely will be on Sunday. But let's go ahead and talk about two transactions the New Orleans Saints made. The Saints have signed to their practice squad offensive lineman Mark Evans II and Daniel Sorensen. Now, these two guys have been with the Saints organization. They were a part of the offseason activities. Of course, when the Saints made their roster cuts, these two guys were a part of it. But these are two players that the Saints are very familiar with. Mark Evans, the rookie out of Arkansas Pine Bluff. I got opportunity to meet him, at the NFL Combine. Spoke with him. Really good guy. Easy to root for. He's a guy that I feel like if, a team gets with him and develop him, he can be a really solid offensive lineman. Super athletic. I'm glad that the Saints decided to bring him back. And also Daniel Sorensen, a.k.a. Hardcore Holly. Look, anybody that watch wrestling, go ahead and search Hardcore Holly if you don't know who I'm talking about, all right? If you're a wrestling fan, you definitely know who I'm talking about. If you don't, search Hardcore Holly and tell me that Daniel Sorensen doesn't favor him. But all in all, Daniel Sorensen was a guy that was a part of the Saints' secondary rotation last season. He had 2 interceptions, and we all know that was hard for the Saints to get interceptions last year. There were few and far in between, but he was able to get 2 interceptions. And this is no surprise due to the status of Jordan Howden, who's been dealing with an injury. He hasn't practiced this week. It's more than likely he won't be playing. You need to have somebody there for depth. I can see Daniel Sorensen maybe being active, contributing on special teams. So those two guys are part of the Saints roster as of today at the time that I'm making this podcast, and two familiar guys that know the organization and the organization knows them. But let's go ahead and talk about Derek Carr. Man, Derek Carr, unfortunately, last week versus the Green Bay Packers, take a sack, suffers an AC sprain in his right throwing shoulder, and his status is up in the air. The Saints are saying day to day, but miss me with that nonsense. If you're smart enough to know, if you ever heard of an AC sprain, there's no way in the world that a guy like Derek Carr is going to be playing with an AC sprain. I mean, if you're dealing with an AC sprain, that time that you have to heal is between 2 weeks and a month. And he had it in his throwing shoulder. Now, if he didn't, more than likely he probably would be playing. The Saints would probably put a harness on him or something like that for precautionary measures. But this is one of those situations where, you got to protect your quarterback. You paid this guy $150 million to come to your team to change the fortunes at the quarterback position and give it stability that we haven't seen since the Drew Brees era. And now, he's hurt. And if the New Orleans Saints, I'm just saying this, if the New Orleans Saints even consider bringing this dude out here to start against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with that pathetic, paper-thin offensive line that they got, the matadors that they are, then somebody definitely needs to be fired. Like, if this was one of those situations where Derek Carr was like 50-50 and you had an offensive line that you can trust to protect your quarterback, then I can be like, you know what, okay, give it that old Warrior try. But when it comes to this offensive line, you can't trust these guys. I'm just being serious, man. You cannot trust these guys. You don't want these guys to protect a well-bodied quarterback, say at least one that's dealing with an injury, because they have not shown that they have what it takes to protect the quarterback. They have not shown that they could understand their blocking assignments and block to the best of their ability. So why put Derek Carr in this situation? I understand the competitive aspect of it all, right? You don't want the opposition to know exactly what you're doing. But in this case, nobody's fooled, man. Nobody believes that Derek Carr is going to play. He didn't practice on Wednesday. He didn't practice on Thursday. He's not practicing on Friday. So more than likely, he's not going to be playing in this game, and it's Jameis Winston's opportunity. Which leads me to my next point, Who Dat Nation. They need to go ahead and allow Jameis Winston to play free. Now, I understand that Jameis Winston can make some calculated risk at time, right? Uncalculated, rather. I understand that he's one of those guys that you kind of, screech a little bit when the ball goes down the field. Y'all know how it goes, right? You're watching TV and then that play action pass, and then the pass gets thrown down the field and the cameraman just in dramatic fashion just pans down the field, and you're hoping that your receiver is underneath the ball so he can make the catch, hoping that it's not a mistake or interception. I get all that. But you got to allow this guy to be himself. I get it, right? But Jameis possesses certain skills. He has a really good arm. And honestly, I think that you could have a little bit more explosiveness offensively if you allow him to play the quarterback position free. I felt like last week it was a little bit too handcuffy to me. By that, I mean, it just seemed like they were in his ear, telling him just to check it down if nothing's there, not giving him the same opportunities, in my opinion, that you would have given Derek Carr. If Derek Carr is going to be out for a while, you have to make sure that Jameis Winston is comfortable enough to feel like he can actually play this position fully and be able to be himself. And now you have Alvin Kamara coming back also, which would be huge for the offense. But I'm still a little skeptical because we know that running backs are talented, some of them, right? The Alvin Kamaras of the world, the Derrick Henrys of the world, the Aaron Joneses of the world. We know these guys are talented, but you need an offensive line that can be able to open up hold for you to be able to run through. And I understand that Alvin Kamara is better than half of what the NFL running backs have to offer, but at the end of the day, he still needs an offensive line to be able to block for them. If the Saints want to beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Who Dat Nation, they have to stop playing scared. They got to stop with this conservative offensive play calling. They have to be aggressive. You have to be aggressive. Now, I get it that Dennis Allen is a defensive-minded coach. And this leads me to what I said on social media during the time when the Detroit Lions were playing against the Green Bay Packers on Thursday night. I said there's a difference between an offensive-minded coach and a defensive-minded coach. And people thought that I was taking shots at Dennis Allen. But I want to clarify what I meant. What I'm saying is, when it comes to a defensive-minded coach, he wants the last line of defense more than likely to be his defense trying to create a stop against the opposite team's offense. That is what he wants. When they feel like they have a lead, I'm talking defensive-minded coaches, they want to hold said lead. They're not trying to be as aggressive, right? They're trying to run the football, work the clock, because they feel like their defense is good enough to make these stops and is good enough. But if you look at the Detroit Lions and even the Green Bay Packers when they played the Saints last week, they made the necessary adjustments. I'm talking Matt LaFleur. I'm talking Dan Campbell, Ben Johnson, his offensive coordinator. They continued to be aggressive. And when it came to the Saints and Green Bay, Jordan Love understood that more than likely the passes that he was throwing could be intercepted. But he was aggressive. He was willing to throw those 50-50 balls to Romeo Doubs. He was able to throw those 50-50 balls to Jake Reed and Luke Musgrave. He was willing to do that. And sometimes, you might not be as successful. He was successful on Sunday, not so much Thursday, but he still showed a level of aggression. And also with the Detroit Lions, they didn't sit on their lead when they were up 24-3. They tried to continue to push that lead. They worked David Montgomery. They pushed the ball down the field to their playmakers, and that's exactly what you need to do. If the Saints come out the gate like they did against the Green Bay Packers, they have to make sure that they are being as aggressive as possible because those are some really good playmakers on Tampa's team. You still have Mike Evans. You still have Chris Godwin. You still have a lot of these talented players around him. And Baker Mayfield is more than capable of giving these guys the football. So if you go up in this game, do not sit on your lead. If you go up to 17-0, even 20-0, your job is to make sure that you score as many points as possible and make it very, very complicated for the opposite team's offense to be able to keep up with your offense. Now, I know it's been kind of tough for the New Orleans Saints to do that. Be that as it may, they have the worst offensive line in all of football, and I'm going to continue to say that until they improve. And also, there's been some conservative play calling along the way. But if the New Orleans Saints want to continue to contend, not just in the NFC South, but the entire NFC, they're going to have to be able to put up points. Because if you're going to make the playoffs, you're going to be going up against teams that can score points. And it's good to have a really good defense, but these teams' offenses are good enough to counteract what your defense is doing, no matter how good they are. So the New Orleans Saints, hopefully, they go into this game learning from the mistakes of Green Bay, not sitting on leads, and trying to find ways to be more aggressive in the passing game, in the running game, and when it comes to defense, continuing that aggression from the start of the game till the end. But I would love to hear from you. What do you all think about the New Orleans Saints matchup versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? What are your keys to victory? What do you think about the Saints signing Mark Andrews and Daniel Sorensen? And what do you think about Derek Carr's injury, his AC sprain? Do you think there's a chance that he'll play on Sunday? Comment down below, like and share this video. This has been the State of the Saints podcast. Once again, my name is TJAY Jones. Thank you for tuning in. And also, you can check out previous episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Anchor FM. Please like and subscribe to this channel. I would really appreciate that. And you can also interact with me on X at TJAY Jones 8. Till next time, all I got to say is, who dat?